Welcome in, everybody, to Inside the Borough. We are back after a brief hiatus with a very special guest joining us today. And no, it's not Kevin making the return to the podcast. It's FAU Softball head coach Jordan Clark joining us here today on Inside the Borough. Jordan, thanks for taking some time during this busy couple days of prep. How's it going?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk about all the OWL things and just what's going on in the softball world.
Absolutely. For those who are not aware, we do talk about it every time on the Inside the Borough. So if you're not aware, you're not watching. But what's the last couple of weeks been like for you? Obviously, you guys had the very strong end to the regular season. Tough little outcome there in Tampa, but back at it in Gainesville coming up. What's the feeling been like over the past couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a series of emotion. And, you win a back-to-back conference championship, which people don't realize it's really hard to do. And a lot of times people get satisfied with just winning one. And we just talked about it today in our team meeting is I believe it left us hungrier to want to do it again. And so that was something that was really special. And to do it the way they did it with, a new team, a new theme, all the things was really impressive. Going into the conference tournament, we lost a heartbreaker to North Texas 1-0, some missed opportunities and some things that just didn't really work in our favor. But with everything that's happened throughout the season, I am a big believer that you go through speed bumps for a reason so that you can learn how to handle adversity. That's going to lead us up to this weekend, which we got an automatic bid or an at-large bid to the NCAA Regionals, which we are the only mid-major in the country that got that bid. So just going back-to-back regionals at-large bid is really hard and really special. And so I'm just so proud to shout it from the rooftop and get this thing going.
Jordan, you mentioned being the only mid-major to have an at-large bid. When you guys unfortunately lose to North Texas, is there a little bit of a concern that, maybe you guys didn't do enough, or did you sort of feel a little bit comfortable that after the regular season you guys had that you guys would have a spot somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a Debbie Downer at times because I'm telling the kids oh, well, that might be it. You never know. And it's just because you're putting your fate in someone else's hands, and you'll learn I'm a control freak at heart, type A personality all the way. And so I don't like waiting to see if somebody's going to let us in or not. So I knew our resume was really, really good. I'm a numbers person, ran them all season long, every game. I knew exactly where we were. This year we were in a way better position than last year, believe it or not. And so I knew, and I was at peace, and I think the girls were at peace, that if we didn't get in, then something was wrong, right? Something was wrong. And, it just didn't go in our favor. And we were going to be at peace with that, knowing that we did everything we possibly could. So yeah, I was a little less stressed yesterday, but still very thankful.
I feel like the last couple of days, I guess, could be kind of like the pit stop portion of a race, right? You guys aren't in that. You guys aren't in action, but you're refueling. For people who don't know what I'm talking about, though, what has been the team mentality this season, and how have you guys kind of gone about embodying that?
Yeah, so our team theme is called DTR, which is Dare to Race. It's geared around NASCAR. It's geared around F1 racing and just any kind of race in general. And, my first year that we were here, we talked about it was called Under Construction. So build the foundation, do it right. You're not going to leave cracks in the foundation. You're not going to throw something up quick and hope that it withstands all the storms and adversity. Year two, it was boxing. And so we kind of put everything about you've got to fight for what you want. You've got to fight to earn the right for people to talk about you. And so this year we kind of got to this whole team theme on racing because, it takes a really brave person to go to the starting line. Nobody loves to run a race. Nobody wants to go run a marathon. Nobody just wants to go ride 500 laps in a car. But the thrill that you get by being in first place is what keeps you going back, or the thrill of how can I pass somebody at the end? And so we kind of talked about that our car is the one on the starting line in first place from last season. What are we going to do when somebody passes us? What are we going to do when there's a target on our back? And so we've just embodied this whole theme this year, and we've done some really cool stuff with it. We took the girls down to a NASCAR race. We also visited Daytona Speedway when we were at a tournament, and just trying to give them so many different life lessons. And I think that's important, that it's not just softball. And that's something I pride myself on as a coach, is that, softball, yes, it's who you are. Yes, it's what you do, but also how are we going to make you ready for life and learning things things through other sports and themes and all the things.
One of the things you did do, I was there yesterday, you gave everyone a race car. I want to know the follow-up, though. How did everyone do on building it? You didn't seem confident that everyone was going to be able to do it.
Yeah, so it was funny because a couple of the girls, so we did our team meeting today, and we watched, we're watching this docuseries on Netflix about, NASCAR. And so it's season 2. So we kind of started that. And some of the girls bedazzled their cars. And so it just shows you once again, who we are as people and who goes above and beyond. And so you got Kylie Hammonds, who had bedazzled her car. Yanni put stickers on it. Somebody else put a bow on their car. And we had some that did not make their car. And so that was the point, was are you going to fully buy into this, right? Are you going to buy into your role? Are you going to buy into the theme? Chloe Yates, bless her heart, she's like, it took me 1 hour. I was like, Chloe, it shouldn't take an hour, because it stressed me out so bad. And you've got Abby Oda, who was timing herself, and it took her 7 minutes. So it was cool. It was cool hearing them talk about it. Emma Grace, who's a freshman, she comes in and she sits. This is the most priceless moment. And this shows you how people can go in 2 different directions with directions. And it looks like a mini, kind of Range Rover G-Wagon. And the girl next to her has a version of it. She has a version. They built them completely different, but it's the same exact car, same exact directions. We just all started dying out laughing. And it just shows you that how you can take information and how you get to the finish line with a product.
I'm just glad to hear that Chloe took an hour, because it almost certainly would have taken me an hour and a half to build the car, judging by some of the stuff in my apartment, which has taken me an hour and a half to build a shelf.
Yeah.
Jordan, I think it's so unique when you win a conference championship. The next year, you're no longer hunting. You are now the hunted, right? Everyone's trying to catch up to you. How much has the team embraced being sort of the team that everyone else is trying to hunt? And, all season when you guys are on these runs, that there's someone breathing down your neck trying to be the one to beat you.
Yeah, they always say your team can sometimes take on your personality. And so I always tell the girls, give people something to talk about, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. But if they're talking about you, then you're doing something. And so I've really just tried for them to embrace that, the fact that you have the American talking about you, the fact that you have the country talking about you, college softball, that is so cool in itself. And that, 5-6 years ago, were they saying these things? Probably not. And so taking pride in that you get to be in the conversation. I have a pretty big personality, pretty much prove you wrong, underdog mentality. And I just try to keep our girls in that headspace that okay, yes, just because you're picked number 1, just because you have that target on your back, we're still building this thing, right? We are still trying to do something completely different that hasn't been done. We have not been to a super regionals. We have not been to a regional final. These are things that we want to accomplish. And, we talk about why not us, and how are we going to give ourselves the best chance to do that?
Jordan, my one big question, I feel coming into the regional, what new dugout chants are the girls, going with now? Because I noticed, besides the good pitching for UNT, I mean, they had some great dugout chants.
Okay, so you're not going to be able to see this, but on on my phone, I just got sent this by one of the players. She was new dugout prop, and I'm that explains our team so perfect. That instead of thinking about what snacks am I going to bring, it's what dugout prop am I going to bring so I can make it on ESPN. But I let them be authentically themselves. I want weird, quirky kids. I don't want cookie cutter. I don't want them all to look the same, act the same. And so the fact that we're making props right now makes my heart happy. And most coaches would be like, this is ridiculous. You should be taking more swings, but we're doing art projects.
Now, Jordan, the important question is are these NFL touchdown dances where they're choreographed in advance, or are these sort of on the fly, made up the week of a game, right? Hey, we're all going to do this if something happens.
Nope. They are made up on the fly. They are not approved by me. I have no idea what they're going to do. And if the camera ever zooms in on me, I'm like covering my face sometimes, because I'm I'm that coach that lets them act a fool. Like, this is ridiculous. Or I miss a lot of things in the game, and I'll go back and watch the broadcast, and I like will take screenshots and videos and send it in our team group me. And I'm like, you guys, and they're like, what? Like, and so they call them Sellies. So if you ever hear them yell like Selly, Selly, like they are just like, it's their time to shine. And Yanni Guzman, who is a junior for us, super creative. She actually made a shirt, and it has every girl's Selly on it throughout the whole year. And so they all want to make it on the shirt. So they have to make sure that they do something pretty crazy to get on the shirt.
Well, shout out to Yanni, because if there's ever a piece of FAU Owls Nest content that comes out with anything softball, she's liking it. So
Yep.
Shout out to Yanni for that. What you said kind of made me intrigued a little bit. I want to hear, how has the staff dynamic worked out this year? Because we talked to, remember way back at the beginning of the season, you had Trin and Kate joining the staff, first time as players, and your staff is also the biggest it's been this year. So how is having that, group of, diverse personalities, not only on the team, but on the staff, helped kind of make this culture is what it is?
Yeah. I mean, you're only as good as who you surround yourself with. And the fact that like we have put together a pretty awesome group that are all so very different, but have one common goal and mission in mind, that it kind of makes us row this boat together versus, going in different directions, which is nice. And so it's just been really special, like to do this with people that you love and people that you trust and people that trust you is something that's priceless. And I don't think people realize like how much time you put into this. And, I see them more than I see my husband. Like I see them so much. And so the fact that we get to do it together, Nicole's one of the OGs. She's been here for 3 years. Trin played for me, Kate played for me. And for them to trust, like, I want to work for you now. It's something that like never gets old. And, I've always said, like, I want people that either play for me or work for me, that they feel like I'm in their corner for life. And I'm also realistic to know that, it might not be a forever job for some of them. And, their goal is to get their dream job either after this or want to stay here as long as they can. And so we want to make magic while we have the chance together, because we just don't know how long we have. And so it's just an awesome group.
Is it a requirement to have a dog to be on the FAU softball staff?
No, Nicole doesn't have a dog. Kate does have a dog now. Shelby does. My dog's so bad. Cole Clark, shout out to him. He's a product of my parenting, which is not great, apparently. But so we love dogs. We encourage dogs. Our field guy, Max, he just got a new golden puppy that you've seen Tucker take over the internet. He's the star of the show right now. So we definitely like puppies.
If no one's got me, I know Tucker's got me.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I guess on the topic of being this unique team that is constantly doing things differently, right? And I think that's the beauty of college softball and college baseball, in a sense, that it's like everyone has their own personality on the team. But I mean, to see these things, I guess, go viral on Twitter, and to see, people talk about FAU in this way, how much pride does that give you to know that they're not only talking about the on the field accomplishments, but they're also talking about the personalities that everyone on the team has?
Yeah. I mean, when you take a job, like, you have this vision of like, how can I put this school on the map? Right. And like, for us, it was, I took this job after a legend who is a legend in her own world of golf, softball, all the things. And so, it was not trying to come in and be something different, but it was also like respecting the past, but also transitioning to something new, fun, a little bit lighter. And, I've been at an Arkansas, I've been at Ohio State. Like, I've gotten to see, what that world is. And I tell our girls, like, why can't we do that here? Right? Our budget might look a little bit different. Our travel might look a little bit different, but like, why can't we make that same experience? And so to see the world like talking about us, and to have text messages from people that you're like, oh my gosh, they're following us. And people talking about it on blog sites. Like, I just love it. Like, I'm a person, I love attention. I love people to talk about our program, talk about our girls. So anytime we can get that spotlight, we will take it. And I just think, like, you guys know FAU, and we are sitting on this gold mine that hasn't fully like been just taken advantage of. And when I took the job, I was like, oh my gosh, like we're going to make this thing shine. Like there's so many things here that no one knows about yet. And, shout out to Brian White for like giving me the opportunity and continuing to support us and give us all the things that we need to, let people know who we are.
I want to ask, because I've always been curious about this, and shame on me for not learning about it sooner, but there is a diehard group of supporters that sits behind home plate every game. And I've talked to a couple of them here or there, but I've never fully gotten the story on like, what is this group? Because they're awesome. We have fans who come every now and then, but they're there every game, and whether it's beating 200 degrees or raining, they're there. And I think it's pretty cool. So what's the story behind that group?
They've just been loyal. Like they were fans before I took the job. I'll never forget. I took the job. I was up in my office. I knew nobody. Here comes these older gentlemen, and they walked up and they're like, "You're the new softball coach?" I said, "Yep, I am." And they said, "Well, we don't like that bunting stuff. We want doubles and home runs. Like, can you teach offense?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to try." And so they were like, "Well, we want some excitement with the bats." I said, "You got it." And I was like, "Do y'all come to the games?" They're like, "We won't miss one." I'm like, "Okay." I was like, "My goal is to win you over by the end of the season. Let me know how I'm doing." And so just building relationships with them. And, we have Dennis. Dennis emails me after every game, and, he could text me, but he emails me. You've got Ernie, who shows up to practice, Jim that wears the firefighter hat that yells, "Who let the owls out?" You've got Brian Chen, who, supports us, and he's always there. Like you've got Crash and, so it's a really awesome group. And we added Michael Garrett to the outfield, who does like Paradise Island. So they have brought the boom out in the outfield. So it's just so cool. And like, my heart is just so happy because it's not about how many fans you have. It's about like how much support and love that they give you and how they make your girls feel. And it's just been so special.
Our favorite's definitely Hoot and Holler. He's gotten a few of us out on Paradise Island, where I have some buddies, when I was a student last semester, and they were not going to softball games, but I'm like, "Hey, let's go on Paradise Island. Get some drinks out there." It was a good time.
Paradise Island is the place to be. Like,
so
I laugh because like if you closed your eyes against the USF Friday night game, you felt like you were at a beach club in Mexico. And I'm like, this is cool. Like this is so
DJ
fun.
out there.
Yep. So shout out to Hayden and shout out to Michael Garrett, Hoot and Holler, for making it happen.
Yeah, they're awesome. You brought up Brian White. How cool is it? You win the first American Conference championship in school history, and then you get some baby blue unis. The first I think no FAU team has ever gotten them.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, like I said, I'm forever indebted to him. He took a chance on a young assistant coach, and the rest is history. And, I brought the crazy idea of the powder blues. I was like, listen, I know we do the Paradise Vice. I know we do all that, but like the ocean is light blue. And when you think of like powder blues, you think of Paradise. I was like, so here's a crazy idea. Let's do some powder blues. And so he sees them, and he didn't see them before. So I was nervous. I was going to be like, oh gosh, he's not going to approve. He loved them. His wife loved them, his daughters. So when I got his stamp of approval, I was like, okay, we did something good. So it's just awesome that he supports my crazy ideas. And he might shake his head a little bit and think, what is she doing? But he's so supportive.
You mentioned Joan Joyce, and the creator of the program, the person who's brought the program up to, I guess, where it was before you took over. How much do you keep that legacy alive as you guys go on these runs to 2 straight NCAA tournaments and 2 straight American Conference championships?
Yeah, I mean, she laid the foundation. There is no FAU, there is no resources unless she started this thing. And so, we still have girls on our team that was recruited by that staff, and that was here during, those hard years with adversity of, Joan passing away during season. Her family has been so supportive, and that was something I was really nervous about. And her brother, Joey, like he comes to practice, he sits by the games, like he'll send a text and say he's proud of us. Janice, her sister, like, she was supportive when she came down. And so just having the support of the family is really important to me, because I know how much Joan means to this community and to this program and just to the world of softball, that, I want to make sure that we honor that as much as we can. And that, even when this group leaves FAU that was, once played for her and recruited by her, that like, future recruits know that like she's the one that paved the way for this program.
I want to shift gears a little bit towards the team. Obviously, Autumn's had a ton of success in the circle this year, as has the entire staff. I believe Gabby Sacco has like 4 complete games, 7-2 record. Jaden Martinez had a sub-3 ERA and a perfect game to boot. How is kind of the pitching staff developed this year and heading into the postseason? Is that something you feel like is going to be a strength here?
Yeah, I mean, you get depth for a reason, and Autumn's been phenomenal. But like we've said all year long, Autumn can't do it by herself, right? As much as like we know she could, but from a health standpoint of putting all those innings on her arm, it's not the best, right? We want her fresh, we want her dominant. So being able to have several pitchers that can go in at any time and do some different things. They're all very different. You know, Jaden's going to throw gas. She's going to throw it hard. She's a lefty. Ainsley's going to come in and spin it at 57 miles an hour. And Gabby's going to bring the bulldog mentality on the mound that like, you're not going to beat me. And so to have those 4 and be fresh, you know, we're fresh. Like we haven't played a ton of softball in the past 2 weeks. And so I definitely think it's going to help us, and we're going to need it in the regional that we're going to, because all teams can hit the ball, and we're going to have to be deep in the circle.
The bats all year have been all over the place, 1 through 9, all productive. Yeah. But they went quiet here in the last game. How much, from what you've seen from that group, how much do you think they really want to bounce back? Is it kind of, you mentioned them talking, amongst themselves. What do you think the bounce back is going to look like?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we hit for a long time today. And we took some pictures, some videos, and just kind of talked about like, when you face pressure, what does your body do? What decisions do you make? And how can we make better ones? Because, you know, I printed off pictures of all the good swings, all the bad swings. You know, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And sometimes in the moment, you're like, that was a good swing. And then you go back and look at it, you're like, no, it wasn't. And so for us, like, it's one of those things that like, it can motivate you. And so that's what I tell them is, you know, through all hardships, like, what are you going to do with the information, you know? And so I'm excited to see us bounce back. Like, you know, we're going to swing it. We're going to still play aggressive. And, you know, like our offense, we've relied on so much this season. So the one game it let us down, it sucks. Like it sucks. And you take pride in it as the hitting coach. I'm like, man, I don't even want to watch that game back. Like, oh, those are such bad swings, but you get to work and you figure it out. And that's the cool part about our game.
I think everyone's going to talk about Florida in this regional, but Georgia Tech, you know, looking at them yesterday, they've had some games where they can put up 10 runs and make it look easy. What challenges do they present, you know, from your initial watches? I know it's still probably only been about a day of work.
Yeah. I mean, we went to work right away. Like as soon as they announced it, I'm already like looking at stats, like looking at their opponents. You know, they play in a really hard conference. So they are battle tested. They are coached by an awesome person. And so, you know, they're just going to be well coached. And so that's the thing, is that we are going to have to execute in all facets, pitching on the mat or on the mound, in the box, defensively. And we're going to have to keep innings small, right? Like we're going to have to be okay that they might score. Great. We're going to score back and we're going to punch back. So, but yeah, it's a good opponent. It's going to be a really good matchup. And, you know, like you hope that your resume and you hope that like, you know, your schedule that you've played gets you ready for that game one.
I think the unique thing about the North Texas game is even when the bats are not able to drive in runs, you guys go into the 9th inning and, you know, for the most part, there is still enough competition where you guys can keep that game close and have a runner in scoring position late. How much does that give you guys encouragement to know that even when things don't work for most of the game, when it matters the most, you guys get incredibly close to tying that game up in the final inning? Yeah.
And, you know, I took the blame with the girls after the game. I was like, hey, that's on me, right? Like we had a runner at second base, no outs. I had Kylie Chanel up. She bats .389 with runners in scoring position. Like I was playing the odds of like, she's going to do this. So we chose not to bunt her there. And we could have bunted her, moved her over to third, moved the Kylie Hammonds over to third. Desiana comes up, hits a deep fly ball to left. Like she scores, right? Now it's a 1-1 ball game. But I chose to let her swing it. And that's something that like, as a coach, sometimes you make some calls and it doesn't always go in your favor. But the thing it told me is that, hey, like we are one swing away. We are one swing away, and as long as there's an out, there's a way. And, you know, even at the end, we had runners on first and second with 2 outs, and we just didn't get it done. But we had the ability to fight and get 2 runners on that last inning. So I'm excited. I'm so proud of them. They've done such cool things this year that, I just hope we have a really good showing. And, we show the committee why they picked us as a 2 seed. And, we hope that, we can come out on top that first game.
You mentioned this yesterday about Georgia Tech. Sophia Voiles for them pitches most of their innings. You guys saw that with Annika Anderson with North Texas, same type of thing. What type of challenges does that present when another team has an Autumn Courtney type pitcher? Yeah. And how do you guys go about preparing for that? Pretty much knowing this is who we're going to face.
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing I tell our girls, I'm like, we have to focus on us. Right. And so we knew exactly what Annika Anderson was throwing. We knew every single pitch. We had a game plan, but can you execute that? And so the biggest thing for us is we have to make sure that, we focus on our swing, we focus on our approach, our mentality, and not get caught up in what they're doing. Right. If you can be on time, if you can get your body in the right position, you're going to square a ball up no matter what pitch is thrown at you, versus trying to guess, am I getting inside? Am I getting outside? Are they going up? Are they going down? It's hey, just get your barrel in front of the plate and swing hard. And so we're just going to focus on us. That's number one. Luckily, we can set up machines. We can have live arms that are going to, trick the girls and know what this girl throws without talking too much about it.
Jordan, thank you a lot for taking some time to hop on with us today. Well, one last thing. People who may not know the host family situation, is there a host family in Gainesville? And how has that kind of helped you combat? You mentioned the travel may not be as nice sometimes as some of the big P5s, but how has the host family situation helped combat that?
Yeah, it's been so fun. And I do it because these girls are so proud of where they come from, and they're so proud of their families, and they put so much time into this. And so, if I can give them a glimpse of what it's like to live in someone else's shoes, and them to kind of see where each other come from, what kind of food they like, they get to pick the meals, all the things. So that's really special. And it's something that we take pride in, that when you commit to us, when you play for us, it's family. That's one of our core values. And, even on the road before a big series, we're going to go to somebody's house. And, if they want to provide barbecue and soda, we're going to eat barbecue and soda because that's your favorite thing. And it doesn't matter. But, Gainesville, we do not have a host because no one is from Gainesville, but Elizabeth Hightower played at Florida. And so she's going to show us all the spots, and we're going to eat at one of her favorite restaurants and just give our girls that full experience.
Well, there you go. I'm glad you guys got something in the deck, and best of luck this weekend. I will be there. I convinced Drew to go to Tampa. Well, I'll work my magic and try to get him up to Gainesville too.
All right, we're gonna have a better showing. I promise, Drew. We're gonna do better.
Jordan, I will make a promise. When you guys make it to the Super Regional, I will be there.
Okay. Put your money where your mouth is, because we're.
I will. I've got some saved up flight points. I will be there.
Is it funny? I couldn't even tell you in this moment what supers we match up with. I want to say it's Clemson, but I am not 100% certain.
I will find a way. I don't care where it is.
Familiar.
All right. There. Fingers crossed. I'll show up.
Yeah, don't think too much ahead, but I like to match up with Clemson. We'll see, though. We'll see.
Exactly. Well, thank y'all for having me. I really appreciate it. And, you guys are awesome. We love the support, the coverage. The girls love about it. They send it in our group me. So it doesn't go unnoticed. That's for sure.
Well, we appreciate it, and we see it too. Like I said, shout out Yanni. Every post it's got a like, and we really do appreciate it. So, Jordan, thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Awesome. Go Owls. Bye, y'all.
FAU Softball head coach Jordan Clark taking some time to speak with us. I walk away from the softball interviews and softball games every time. I'm hyped up. I think Coach Clark has done a really good job building this program. It could have been easy for things to turn south when you turn to a new regime. That hasn't been the case. So if you have any way of getting to Gainesville this weekend, I highly recommend it. It's a good time, and they do have a good facility for softball. So it's a nice environment there. Drew, you got anything?
Yeah, no. I mean, obviously disappointing in Tampa, but you know what? Maybe that's just what they needed. You know, maybe if they go in, they beat UNT 8-1 and then beat USF 6-1. It's like, I don't know. They're feeling all great, but I don't know. Sometimes this is the best thing that can happen. A little kick in the shin and wakes them up a little bit.
we shall see. Georgia Tech, I feel like is a winnable matchup, but don't want to put the horse before the cart there. So we'll or the cart before the horse, whatever that saying is. Don't want to do it. But make sure to tune in. Game will be on 2 p.m. on Friday. So make sure to tune into that. But shifting gears a little bit, softball has been our focus here over the past couple weeks. But on the side, FAU football recruiting has been keeping us very, very busy. The roster at this point is nearing pretty much finalized. Might be a thing here or two there. But what we're looking at now is pretty much what we're going to get. Drew, Kevin, we'll go player by player here. Won't go too in depth. We don't want to take up too much time, but brief thoughts overall on where we think the roster's at right now. Before heading into the summer and fall.
I'd say improved from where we were after spring ball, but also you could say that every year. So we'll just have to wait and see. A lot of quality brought in, I think, more than previous years. I think you said it to me, Robbie. It just seemed like a year where they were really looking for guys that can contribute and not just bodies. So really excited to talk about a few of them. I think we got a lot of quality backups, a few potential starters. So excited about this group.
100%. I did a lot with a lot of people hitting the portal. I was a bit concerned. I was like, where are we going to get, numbers from? And then all of a sudden, guys started rolling in and, I really, like you said, and like I said to you, I think a lot of these guys have a chance to contribute, especially with just having that fresh staff. These are guys that they brought in year one. There's not too much, there's going to be a lot of open jobs. And so I think that's good in a sense because, players don't want to come into a situation where, it looks like the job's locked up and the coach has known this guy for 3 years and there's no chance, And so I think especially, on the lines, not as much receiver. I feel like that's locked up, but especially on the lines and in the secondary, there's going to be some jobs up for grabs. And there's been a lot of pieces brought in. We'll start in reverse order here because I think the most recent addition, at least scholarship edition, is intriguing. Quincy Brown, wide receiver, comes over from Nichols. Started his career at TCU, was a big-time recruit, had offers from Georgia, Tennessee, all these big schools, and he opted to go to TCU, stayed there for a couple years, and then was at Nichols for the past 2, and now in his last year of eligibility, he's coming to Boca. Immediately jumps out to me as a guy who can potentially start on the outside. It never, he's you see it all the time. Big high school rating. Didn't win a job as a freshman at TCU. Got on the field, had over a couple hundred yards in his 2 years there. Just never got the big role. Ended up going to FCS, and now he's here. But I think based off his size, what I've seen, he's got definitely ability to catch jump balls, which on the outside, I feel like what we've seen in previous Kittley offenses and even lately in the spring game is going to be a big thing. And there's a job open on the outside for sure, and he could potentially go and win it. What do you think, Drew?
Yeah, I was looking for, I feel like especially in the air raid, you need more receiver depth than anything else. Compared to last year, if you look at our roster, we only have 5 scholarship running backs on roster compared to last year. We had more than that, but they definitely prioritized the receiver position in the portal, completely overhauled. Should be 4 new starters this year. And I wasn't even thinking about a guy, Jabari Smith Jr., who had a big year last year, despite, some struggles in the receiver room. But yeah, he's got the size, he's got the athletic profile. That's why he was being recruited by all those, Big 12 SEC schools. I think, we're getting him. We're getting a guy. I like the length on him. Something that, maybe Easton Messer doesn't have, Jabari Smith Jr. doesn't have, Asad Wasim doesn't have. So now we got some 2 lengthy guys on the outside, and J.R. Wilson and Quincy Brown. Nothing negative to say about that at all. Very excited to see what he will do. I think he'll get, a solid amount of snaps per game.
I think the thing about him is you are really betting on the recruiting ranking to process at a new stop because like he has certainly produced at Nichols, but when you look at his production from a box score perspective, which is never the right way to do it, we're talking about a guy who has 600 yards over 2 years, and that's productive, but that's not super productive. And so I think that like for a spring portal addition, looking to add depth and fortify a room, like that's a good addition. And the hope is that you're not going into fall camp having to rely on him to be a starter, because that is probably where you get into the situation of where you don't want to be as a football team. And that was a situation that, truth be told, they were in last season a lot, is they were relying on guys who probably weren't starters to develop into starters. But I do agree with Drew, right? Like if you're going to bet on someone, let's bet on the high school recruit that had a ton of stars and had a ton of looks from top college programs. And it may not work out, but at some point, I think you need to just take bets on guys with talent and hope that the talent works in your system.
100%. And there's talent in that room that's gonna run. On the outside, you got Joe Young, Jay Sean Platt, who's back. He's going to be competing for snaps, and then him as well, and Jabari along with J.R. Wilson. So it's not easy. It's not going to be easy to win a job, and but to have depth in that room is going to be huge. Kind of shifting. Two defensive linemen, the Owls gotten a pair of days. Cam Dunn from the JUCO level played at Iowa Western, and Joe Moore, who comes over from Missouri. Moore is definitely intriguing. He's an edge rusher. He's had production at Arizona State and Missouri. He was rotational guy off the edge for both those schools. Never got cracked into a full role, and then last year suffered a season-ending injury. There was no specification as to what that was, but missed most of the year after 2 games. But he's going to be a fifth-year senior. A lot of experience playing against SEC level lines and Big 12 level lines, and the AAC there'll be some good offensive lines, but they're not going to be the size that he faced at those levels. So he should be able to find some success here. That's no guarantee, but the fact that he's gotten in-game experience at both those big levels, and now he's coming here, I think that'll at least give him a shot to earn some snaps off the edge in a room where there's no one. That's another room where it's going to be wide open, and they're looking for improvement. Last year, good coverage kind of got busted sometimes because there was not enough pressure. So definitely looking for a bounce back in that room. And Cam Dunn as well from the JUCO level seems going to be potentially more developmental, but 6'5", 260 he has the size, abs, maybe a little bit more muscle, and a couple, and maybe he could definitely be a contributor.
I actually really like the Joe Moore edition because he didn't play a lot at Missouri, and truthfully, a lot of that is probably just that room was probably more talented than he was. And that happens when you go to an SEC school like Missouri, who was at some point looking to compete for the SEC championship. But he was incredibly productive against G5 teams last year. And I looked at the Buffalo game, like he had 4 hurries in that game. Like he was getting to the quarterback consistently. And I think when you're looking at guys who carry over, it's not necessarily what they did against the SEC competition, but it's what they did against competition that is going to be at the same level as the competition that they're consistently playing against at FAU. And for the most part, Buffalo is a very similar team to a middle of the pack American team. And so the fact that he was getting production and getting pass rush against them, that's encouraging. And you mentioned they didn't have a lot of pass rush last year. They haven't had a lot of pass rush for the last 4 years. And so hopefully finally being able to generate some consistent pass rush should solve some of the defensive problems of, not having to rely on the cornerback to defend for an hour and a half back there because you can't get to the quarterback.
Yeah, I think they might have gotten 2 new starters too this spring, portal edition. We'll talk maybe even later or now, whatever. Deshaun Batiste, I think he was the very first edition, brought in from Tulane, someone that they really liked at Tulane. And I think the staff is super high on those 3 guys. But like you guys said, more, yeah, I mean, Kevin brought up the Buffalo game. I mean, Buffalo was they were a 9-win team last year in the G5 ranks. So very excited for those guys. Well, it's going to be interesting, new scheme. This is the first year in the last 2 years that we've seen, we'll see what Coach Brett Dewhurst brings. He's the first time As far as I can remember, we brought in a first-time defensive play caller to be our defensive coordinator. So a lot of question marks, but I think there's a lot more talent in the edge room than previously. I think the one guy we will miss from last year was Chris Jones, but I really do like some of the talent in the room. I think guys like Ty Clean Lumen and Gavin Schmarcelin, all talented young players. I think there's a lot of ability to get after the quarterback this year.
A lot of potential for sure. You mentioned Batiste. Earl Miller Jr. joins as well. I believe he's going to be off the interior. And then, that's your interior, your defensive line addition so far this spring. But going up a level to the linebacker room, a guy who really intrigues me also coming from the JUCO level, went to Coffeyville. Kamari Johnson, originally from Memphis, had some eligibility issues with academics coming out of high school. If you want to hear more on that, we have an article on it on Owl's Nest. But he believed he could have gone D1 out of high school, but didn't have the academics for it. Was insanely productive, had over 100 tackles last year, or it might have been combined. It definitely had 80-plus tackles last year. And I think he comes here with a chance to really be a contributor, maybe not right away in that linebacker room, but he's got very good talent. He's experienced playing, albeit at the JUCO level, snaps are snaps, and he's hungry. Obviously, he felt, with talking to him, he messed up. He wasn't good in the classroom. He finished with a 4.0 during his time at the JUCO level. Really wanted to get back here, so he comes here hungry. You have Tyler Stolsky in that room. You have Leon Hart Jr. in that room. But after that, it becomes a little bit more open. So there'll be a chance for him to earn some snaps. And he's a younger guy, so he'll be here. Hopefully, we never know how portal works, but that's an addition that kind of intrigued me. Really, the only linebacker addition this spring portal period, outside of the preferred walk-on Eric Butler Jr., who also comes over from Coffeyville. So that's a collab right there in the linebacker room. And I really like. We'll get into this with some of the other guys, but I really like the staff going after players from all levels. It doesn't have to be G5. It doesn't have to be P4. They've got Mike Kirsch from the D2 level, a couple JUCO guys, which talent can come from anywhere, and I think this staff will do a good job of they've done a good job of identifying that, and I think they'll do a good job of untapping that potential for sure.
Well, truthfully, I think the other thing is when you go to the junior college route, you're effectively getting developed freshmen, if that makes sense, right? Like they may only have 2 years or 3 years of eligibility as opposed to the 4 years, but they were playing football last year at a decently high level. And they're normally like a little bit more under recruited than if you were to go after the Power 4 linebacker drop down who, was at the random SEC school, for example, right? Like those guys, they're going to be recruited by other schools a little bit heavier because teams want those guys. But I think like the junior college route, if you can evaluate that route a little bit more effectively than other schools, that's not necessarily the hidden gem, but that's the route less taken where there's still talented guys who may fit your scheme. And I do kind of compare it to like, going the international route in college basketball recruiting, right? Like not everyone does it. So if you can find a way to do that, that's another avenue that most people just don't have advantages in.
100%. Do you have something?
No, yeah, I think he was JUCO. It might have been D2, but Jaquan Burton, NFL receiver that played for FAU for 3 years, came from JUCO. Excited for the linebacker ad. I think that room really is going to rely on if one of him or a guy like Sharquez Lee takes a step up, because the two experienced guys you have are both transfers, Stolsky and Leon Hart Jr. So you need more than two, and if a guy like Sharquez Lee takes a big step, I think that would be big for that room. But that's an exciting guy to bring in, a self-aware man that is clearly hungry to get back to this level of FBS football.
100%. And shifting gears a little bit, probably the biggest group of additions we saw was the both cornerback and safety room, DB room. You've got Chris Keys, who's safety from Mississippi State. Had some playing time there, and he's familiar with Dewhurst. He was there when Dewhurst was, I believe, the safeties coach there. And so that's an addition that intrigues me a little bit. MJ Hinton as well, who comes over from Jackson State. Jackson State. Let me confirm that. But at MJ Hinton, regardless, he's got a ton of snaps under his belt, and he's a guy who, at 6 foot 185, got the size to definitely be a physical boundary corner in the AAC. It's been interesting though. I mean, they added, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 defensive backs / cornerbacks. I think that was an area where they identified a need and really attacked it. Drew, Kevin, any thoughts?
I really like Hinson, a guy that was, getting recruited by a lot of different schools, a ton of production at the JUCO level. But like you said, the unfortunate loss of the spring was Jaden Williams, who was a guy that, none of us can fault for transferring. This would have been his third different regime of FAU football. There's a safety spot open now because, you figure a guy like Mike Wright can play free safety. A guy like Kyle Boylston can play either of the safety roles, but you're not sure. Maybe Boylston's at third safety, but there might be a safety spot available. I really like a guy, Jaden Sweeney, I watched at Liberty. He's someone I watched the Western Kentucky game when watching Caden and Easton. He made a few tackles on Easton, so I thought that was pretty cool. And Dylan Williams got some time at UTEP. So, but I am very high on Sweeney. I think there's a lot of potential for him, and he could be a nice little ad right there from Conference USA.
It was Texas.
The biggest,
by the way.
Sorry, Robbie. The biggest thing about like the Brett Dewhurst defense is when you go into these DB heavier personnel looks, right? Like you need multiple guys who can do a lot of different things. And Jaden Sweeney has played in the slot. He's played in the box. He's played as a deep safety. Like those guys tend to translate a little bit better in this defense because they are the ultimate chess piece that you can, if a team's going to play a little bit heavier with tight ends, then you can move them into the box. Or if they're going to play with more slot receivers, you can line them up on a slot receiver and not feel entirely uncomfortable about it. And like, that's why I'm incredibly excited to see Jaden Sweeney, because he got playing time a little bit at Liberty. Wasn't a lot of playing time, but got some playing time, impressed. And now it's an opportunity for him to carve out a bigger role in a defense that desperately needs versatile safeties. And I think that's what he is, like, to the T.
Yeah, a lot of versatility in that room. A lot of guys who have played both corner, nickel, and safety. So I think they did a solid job at filling some big gaps. I mean, you go back to before this past spring, you lose C.J. Hurd, you lose Phil Dunham, you lose Day Hill, who's a corner, and so there's just a lot of subtractions. But I think they did a good job with additions.
Robbie, one guy. Just one last shout out to Rez Reed. He comes from UTEP, but he played at Grand Valley State before that. And I got I was able to interview a cornerback from Wisconsin, Nazir Forkerin, and he only had good news because he also transferred from Grand Valley State to Wisconsin. He said only good things about Terez Reed. So looking forward to him. I think he can definitely carve out some playing time. But yeah, like you said, I think we lost every single defensive back starter besides Wendell Filord. So lot of playing time to be had there, but they definitely brought in a lot of talent.
Shout out Wendell. Looks like the oldest guy on the team, but he's a good dude and a very solid nickel corner as well. That's a big addition to have back for sure in that unit because you're getting a lot of guys who are going to be new, younger. To have Wendell in that room is bigger than it looks. It's definitely a solid addition. Another room they identified and attacked was offensive line. They got a bunch of guys who, in my opinion, all can start. Carson Osmus, Kayshawn Sapp, Vinny Fiacable as well from Indiana. All three of those guys, ton of untapped potential there. Sapp and Fiacable were both highly recruited out of high school. Osmus as well, more on the West Coast, and all have had some playing experience in college. And so I think, the cool thing with Sapp is he's familiar with Richardson on the offensive line. Vinny Fiacable last year was on Indiana, and he compared what Kittley's trying to do and the energy that Kittley and the staff gives off of the same thing as Signetti and what Indiana did last year. I'm not predicting a college football playoffs, but that's what Vinny had to say. And so 3 offensive line additions, all with experience at P4 level. I mean, I think that's pretty big, especially knowing how hard it is to get offensive linemen who can contribute at the G5 level. And there was holes open. Madden Sanker came in for Louisville, but outside of that, Vince Forney was the only other addition. So I think there's definitely some need for additions, and I think all 3 of those guys could compete for a starting role.
From people I've talked to, and some people that work in the building, it is possible that Vinny Fiesable, we have to figure out the exact pronunciation. He might be the most impactful transfer from this spring period, because he could play all 5 positions. And I think I wouldn't say a glaring need, but if we're being honest, who was going to play center before he came in? It was probably going to be Braden Cunningham, who is a redshirt freshman and an impressive one too. So in that very high words of praise from O-line coach Stephen Hamby and starter Alex Atkovich at right guard. He is a redshirt freshman and probably more of a natural guard. And then they were testing out guys like Madden Sanker at center, but he's never played center, and he's probably more of a guard tackle, bigger player. Vinny has 5 position versatility, very smart, and I think could be a very natural center in the system. Super excited about him. That's a guy that, if you could ask Kittley about, that's someone I'd ask him about pretty much right away. And then a guy, Carson Osmus, I like that a lot too. Young player, because he's only a redshirt freshman. The best part about him, the scheme fit, because he played in an air raid system at Washington State, where they ran the exact system pretty much to a T that we will run, because their offensive coordinator worked under Zach Kittley, Ben Arbuckle. And then the guy, Quayshawn Sapp, I mean, you could see him playing probably 4 guard tackle positions. Obviously talented player, because he was at Florida State and SMU, was well coached by Garen Justice there, a guy FAU fans are familiar with. So I think 3 very impressive ads there. I think, super important ads too. You can't go in to the season without O-line depth. That would be, suicidal to the season.
Absolutely. And I think, I think we've got depth now who can contribute. Whereas, we heading into the spring, could we have had a starting 5? Yeah. But once it got to the depth portion of it, I don't know necessarily how comfortable Stephen Hamby and Zach Kittley would be putting some of the backups in the game. Now I feel like they can actually, God forbid someone gets hurt or, need, that's something along the lines of that happening. You have guys you can put in the game and be comfortable with it. So rounding out our group, we have a tight end and a quarterback addition. Mike Kirch, the tight end room definitely is a little bit slim. Cam Bell left in the spring portal period, and that was a guy who potentially could have had snaps. And so they go and get a guy from the D2 level, played at Thomas More University. That's in Crestview Hills, Kentucky. Played in 27 games across 3 years. 81 catches for 799 yards and 9 touchdowns. He's a contributor. Was definitely there's some Iowa interest back there. I think Drew mentioned to me, he saw somewhere. So that's identifying a need again. And they didn't need a guy who had P4 experience there. They got a guy who's a contributor. He can block, and he can obviously play a role as a pass catcher. I don't know necessarily how much we'll see that in this offense. Drew, you've watched a lot more than me. Maybe you know the role of a tight end in this offense, but what do we think about them adding Kirch to a room where he could potentially earn a starting job? I mean, Reed McCaskill, Martavis Collins were here before him, but I don't think the job is necessarily locked up at the moment.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's locked up, and probably the most thin room on this roster, if we're being honest, probably still is that in the running back room. Yeah, Reed McCaskill was kind of banged up, but we're super high on him. I think all 3 of us are. We think he could be a good player. Martavis Collins, he had steady hands in that spring game, but also he didn't have much playing time for UTEP last year, so he's still a young player that needs to develop. Kirch, there was Iowa interest. It was reported. How much there was, who knows, but still, goes to show this isn't some scrub that was in the portal. It was a pretty talented player. He was dominant at the D2 level, and that's what you want to see, because it's Division II. There's a big step up there. So we'll see about Mike Kirch. He's got size. His film looked good at the D2 level, so maybe he's the sleeper that can really step in and see some serious snaps.
I think the fact that he can do both block and catch pass, they're not going to have any issues with false starts or anything like that. I think that's a guy who could be reliable, and so we'll see. And rounding out the room, quarterback Zach Gibson joining after a couple seasons at Georgia State. Was at Akron, I believe, for some time. Never fully earned a starting job. Has always found a way onto the field, though, whether that's injury or just taking over for the starter. Had a year where he had 10 touchdowns, no interceptions. So that's a reliable backup right there. I think that makes Kaysen compete a little bit harder for that backup job. And I think that's, obviously a QB1 is locked up, but to see who wins that backup QB job between Magwood, Gibson, and Wiseman, I think that's something to watch. Obviously, don't want to get there, but you need it. As we saw last year, we were down to our third string. So I think competition in that room is good, and I think Gibson's a vet who'll be able to kind of provide that.
I think from a numbers perspective, it just makes sense too, because they were pretty thin scholarship-wise at quarterback. And you don't want to say that you get to the third or fourth string quarterback, but last year they proved that you can get to the third or fourth string quarterback pretty dang easily. And the last thing you want is you going to your fourth string quarterback and having to choose between burning a red shirt on a guy like Magwood or, putting a wide receiver out there like your Kentucky with Lynn Bowden, right? Like, you want to be able to use a quarterback, and to have two backups who are experienced playing at the D1 level who got snaps last season, right? Like, that's something that is a blessing to have, because you may never need him. And you hope you never need him, right? But all it takes is one bad hit and you suddenly need the backup quarterback. And so to have a few backup quarterbacks who know what it takes to play at this level, like, that's something that you can't put a price on. And so, like, there's a good chance that Gibson never plays a snap for FAU, and maybe he only plays cleanup duty against the FCS schools. But if he has to come in, I would feel a lot more comfortable with him than like Magwood right now, just because Magwood is a true freshman. He's a kid who was in high school last year.
100%. And he knows his role. He knows he's a backup quarterback. He wouldn't have came here without that. And just watching the film from his last few years, he's been everywhere. He's been at Akron in the MAC. He's been at Georgia Tech in the ACC, Georgia State, Sun Belt. He's a guy where, and this is kind of all you could really ask for it out of a backup. If Caden, unfortunately, can't play a game, you don't automatically lose the game, because he has some pretty impressive games, especially his last year at Georgia State when he stepped in. He looked better than the starter at times. He's just a guy he's not going to screw up a whole lot. He doesn't have many interceptions. I think you tally the touchdown to interception ratio, it's like 21-5 over the last 3 years. It's about as good as you can get for a backup. And he's definitely not breaking the bank NIL-wise. So I think that's going to be the testament and value of Kittley. Who doesn't want to play for Zach Kittley? Why do you think, Kaysen Wiseman stayed and he knows he's not going to be a starter? Why do you think a guy like, Caden Veldkamp came? That's just the value of having a quarterback, I guess, guru, you could say, that has developed and proved to develop people in a scheme that, it is quarterback friendly. So excited about Gibson, but no offense, Zach. Hopefully we don't have to see much of you on the field this year. We'll be pulling for you if you do, but it's everyone's very excited for Caden in this offense this year.
Everybody except 247 apparently, who ranked him as the 132nd best quarterback in the transfer portal.
If he transferred to Tennessee, that would skyrocket up to 50.
And folks, if you for some reason are only catching the back half of this episode, make sure to head to the University of Florida this weekend, get some good softball in you. Once again, folks, thanks again for tuning into this episode of Inside the Borough. We will be back soon, off season for both basketball and football. Wages on. We'll keep you updated right here. For Kevin Fielder and Drew Shula, I'm Robbie Listella. We'll see you next time.